Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me, as always, are my two colleagues and friends, Anthony Dabbundo and BJ Cunningham. And we've got ourselves a very interesting slate of soccer to get to this weekend, but there is only one place to start. That's with the Manchester Derby, an 11:30 a.m. kickoff on Sunday between Manchester City. They're minus 260, hosting Manchester United plus 750, and the draw is 4-1 on the three-way money line here. City comes into this match in weird form for them, I would say. They're not in bad form by any stretch, but they did lose and then escape Goodison Park with a lucky win in their last two Premier League matches. Meanwhile, United has not lost since January 3rd, but 6 of those 11 matches are draws, and some weird ones at that. United is got a +5 expected goal differential over the last 3 matches. So it does look like Ralf Rangnick is starting to put a team together here that is good. Like, they are legitimately good. However, the two of you guys are on separate sides of this argument on just how much to read into these United results. BJ, you're not buying it, so I'll let you start.
Yeah, legitimately good, I think, is a stretch. And I think the reason for that is because we've talked about it a lot, but the opponents that United has played over since Rangnick has took over. West Ham has basically been the best team they've played in the Premier League. They got their first taste at playing an elite side against Atlético in the Champions League. And boy, did they look really bad for a majority of the match. They were able to actually hold 62% possession, but were only able to muster 9 shots and 0.5 expected goals. On the flip side, Atlético really should have walked away with the win. They hit the post twice. They created 1.3 expected goals on United's defense, and it was just one defensive mistake that United capitalized on their only shot inside the 18-yard box. So it really wasn't a resounding like, oh my gosh, United really deserved that draw. No, they really should have lost to Atlético. And under Rangnick, they do have a plus 0.8 XG differential per 90 minutes, which is good. Not, considering the opponents they've played, it has been pretty easy, but relatively, you have to ask yourself, all right, well, what are you supposed to do under that, during that time frame? The problem is in this matchup is they've had the benefit of holding a large share of the possession under Rangnick. They're averaging around 56% possession in their 13 matches under him. Well, now how are they going to play basically sitting deep for 2/3 of this match while City holds the ball in their end? Because that's what they did the first time. They held the ball for 67% of the time, basically in Man United's own final third. They won the match 2-0, won on expected goals 2-0.6. United only had 5 shots, 3 touches in the penalty area, and 1 box entry at home against City. Even if we look at the performances from United and City and compare them to when Rangnick took over, like I just mentioned, Manchester United plus 0.8 XG differential per 90. Man City's plus 1.67 for over that same time frame. So the discrepancy between these two clubs, I think, is still incredibly massive. And I do not think that United is set up to defend for 60 minutes of this match and try. Obviously, they have the talent to hit City on the counter. That's definitely true. But you're asking a lot from them to sit back and defend for that long when we've seen how shaky they've been defensively against really good clubs. So I love City minus 1.5 at plus 110. I think they're just leaps and bounds better than Manchester United. So give me the Citizens minus 1.5 at home.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a argument to be made that City is in another level compared to United. But I guess the question here is, has the market adjusted enough to the improvements that we've seen? Or I guess, especially over the last 4 weeks, I would say that this United's, and once again, it came against Watford in a 0-0 draw, but they looked good. They looked in sync going forward. Completely different animal against City, but I just wonder if has the market adjusted enough to United's improvements, Anthony?
Yeah, I really don't think so. Just 2 weeks ago, we sat here and Spurs were in a very similar position with very similar odds, catching 1.5 goals on the road. And I've got Tottenham and United rated pretty similarly. And I bet Tottenham then, and I'm betting United here. We joked about it on the last week's pod that it was going to be a really good United, or I thought it was going to be a really good United spot. And I just think this is a good matchup. And I understand everything BJ said about the first meeting is very true. United probably had their worst 90 minutes of the season. And I know they got embarrassed by Liverpool and Watford, but I actually thought the City match was more embarrassing because you mentioned it, one box entry. City had, I believe they completed 93 or plus % of their passes in the second half. There was just no resistance from United. But that United team didn't have Paul Pogba. It didn't have Jadon Sancho. And I think the addition of those two is really what's driving the improvements. And I understand they didn't play well against Atleti on the road, and they had a lot of the ball and they couldn't break them down. And I think that's still a legitimate issue for this United team, but they don't really have that same problem on Saturday, or on Sunday rather, because City's going to have the ball and they're going to have a lot of the ball. And I actually think we haven't really seen United get tested without the ball under Rangnick yet, but I believe based on Rangnick's history that it's going to be relatively effective in a defensive pressing kind of system. So I think what's going to happen is that, similar to the Tottenham match, City's going to play their high line. And when they lose the ball, it's going to be Sancho, it's going to be Pogba sending in passes in behind, trying to get, whether it's Fernandes or whether it's Sancho or whether it's Ronaldo, they're going to have space to run into here. And I think it could work. And I think they're going to get one goal here and keep this game very competitive, and maybe even get two and go for the win. Tottenham exposed some weaknesses in City. And I'm not comparing Kane and Son as a counterattacking duo to Ronaldo and Sancho. But when you add in guys like Pogba and Fernandes, I mean, this is a very lethal counterattacking team who has created at least one expected goal in 8 straight matches. And they've created 2 in almost the majority of them. And so I'm happy to take it plus 1.5. And United have had their issues in defensive transition as well, but I don't think that's much of a problem against City because they're slow and build up. They will have the ball. And United, the one thing that's concerning is the potential set piece issues, but otherwise I think City's going to have shots. They're going to have chances, but they haven't been firing on all cylinders recently. And so I think, last 700 minutes of soccer, United is 3rd in expected goals for, just 6th in goals for. So could get a couple bounces their way and make this a competitive game, which is what I really think is going to happen.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards what you're saying, Anthony, just in a different way. I think that the draw won't ever be out of question in this game, because I think that United will score or be a threat to score at all times. And if United does go ahead, you can apply the same thing to City. And City matches are, they're not, even though they don't draw much because they always win, if against good competition, the environment's pretty good for a draw because of how City likes to play. Like, they take forever on the ball and really, really like to pick their spots. So a 1-1 or 2-2 here is probably how I'm looking. Maybe a live draw if there's an early goal or something, but I just have a feeling this isn't much of an edge, but I do have a feeling that this one ends as a draw. And all right, that's the Manchester derby. Now let's move on to Leicester and Leeds, 7:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. Jesse Marsch is in town to take the helm of Leeds United, who are plus 310 on the road at Leicester, minus 125. The draw here is plus 310 as well. This is a really interesting situation, I think, because you're Leeds United, like, the outpouring of love that was shown for Marcelo Bielsa on his way out was quite touching. He obviously made a huge impact on the club and the city and the fans. People were upset that the team had sacked him despite them cratering into the relegation scrap. And that just goes to show you just how beloved he was. And then they replaced him with a guy who, look, there's no such thing as another Marcelo Bielsa, but Jesse Marsch is not that far off. Like, he doesn't play that crazy man-to-man pressing system, but he's going to have the team pressing at all times. So it's just very funny. I wonder if the thinking there was, okay, we'll kind of get like I don't want to call him a poor man's Bielsa, I guess, but that's the best way I can put it. It's like, we'll get someone who this team can play his style because they played a much more intense version of it. And this way it's like kind of like a weaning off of it. But it'll be interesting. But I don't think Jesse Marsch is going, from what we saw at Leipzig, is going to come in here and turn this defense around like that. And Leicester City is not the type of team that I want to take on at a number like this. I need a much bigger number on Leeds to get involved. And I'm not going to lay it with Leicester either because of their inconsistency. So I'll be passing. But it'll be interesting to watch what Jesse Marsch does, the American Jesse Marsch does with this side. BJ, you are forecasting some goals here, huh?
Yeah, the Marsh hire, when it first came out, I was just like, what? Like, it made no sense to me from the aspect of like Leeds defense has been so horrific, and you bring in a guy who basically turned one of the best defenses in the Bundesliga into one of the worst. So I was like, doesn't really make sense. But then when I thought about it more, did some more reading, I was like, okay, it makes sense. It's basically kind of a little bit of a toned down version of Bielsa. It actually, Leipzig, obviously over a long period of time, they've been one of the best pressing teams in Germany, but their passes per defensive action was actually lower than Leeds United this season. But I'm not sure that Jesse Marsch is the guy to come in and save this Leeds defense. They might improve. They might get more structure, like you said, moving off that man-to-man pressing system. But this is why Bielsa got fired. Over the last 10 matches, 24.8 expected goals and 22 big scoring chances. You can't survive in the Premier League just giving up that much week in and week out. But Marsch at Leipzig was allowing around 1.7 expected goals per match and was near the bottom in the Bundesliga in terms of big scoring chances allowed. So based on what we saw at Leipzig, I'm not so sure he's ready to come in and fix all of these defensive issues. Now, like I said, the intensity is probably going to get turned down a little bit. He's going to provide more defensive structure. He might move them to a 4-2-2-2 or a 4-2-3-1, something that, helps out the back line. But it's not going to be an overnight change like we saw at least the first couple of matches with Roy Hodgson at Watford, where he basically just, switched the entire defense up to a 4-4-2, and you saw more structure and a lot better defensive performances out of Watford. But obviously that's gone to the wayside. Leicester, on the other hand, is in a very interesting spot. They're pretty much secure in the middle of the table. They got a nice win over Burnley on Tuesday that pretty much secured their mid-table for the rest of the season. Their offense is looking good. 1.45 expected goals per match over their last 8 against some pretty difficult competition. City, Liverpool twice, Tottenham, Brighton, West Ham, Wolves, and Burnley. Their defense has been a little bit better over the last 3, only allowing 2.4 expected goals, but they're still 19th in shots allowed per 90 minutes, while Leeds is actually 6th offensively in that same category. So with Marsch coming in, you obviously, new manager bump, but I don't think it's really going to help their defensive issues. So I have 3.5 goals projected here. So I like over 3 goals at -105.
And Anthony, before we move on, I know you don't particularly like this one from a betting perspective, but what are your 2 cents, I guess, on Jesse Marsch, your boy, coming to Yorkshire?
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. One, and this is the existential Leeds question, it's how much of their rise into the Prem, and then how much of that, them getting, in the 10th place last year, and then falling down this year, how much of that was Bielsa truly elevating the talent of what is not a Premier League team? And I think they have some guys who are legitimate Premier League players. And you mentioned Rafinha and Bamford and Calvin Phillips and even Dan James. But you get down the list of players and I start to wonder, is this team just not talented enough? I think it's a very real possibility that we're going to find out here of whether or not Bielsa was really working magic to get everything he could out of these players, and they're just going to fall off once he's gone. But on the other hand, I actually think this is a good fit for, Jesse Marsch. And I think it's actually arguably a better fit than Leipzig was. Leipzig had become much more possession-based. They were having the ball more, less, pace and transition. And they were very much a possession first with a lot of really skilled guys who weren't necessarily these manic pressers. You think of like guys like Nkunku and Olmo and some of their midfielders, and Emil Forsberg. Like those guys they're not really notoriously pressers as much as they are people who are great with the ball at their feet. Well, now he goes to a team who should be comfortable pressing. So I think it'll be really interesting from a fan and a tactical point of view. And from a betting point of view, I actually lean toward Leicester because I think BJ made a good point. They ran through a gauntlet here of really difficult games. And I continue to believe that at some point this defense is going to improve. And the offense has clearly taken steps forward. And Patson Doc has been amazing. And they have enough going forward. And then I think the defense is going to come around maybe. Especially with the set pieces. I mean, it's hard to be as bad as they've been forever. So I lean toward Leicester here. But like you mentioned, if Bielsa were still in charge, I think I'd be all over Leicester. But I'm just not quite feeling it with the uncertainty with the new manager and potential bounce they could get off of it.
And in a game that will probably look very different from Leeds and Leicester. Wolverhampton, they're plus 135 at home, hosting Crystal Palace plus 245. The draw is plus 210. But the most important number for me is the over-under here, set at 2, which is telling me that bookmakers are expecting a low event game, and I'm with it. These are 2 low event attacks that are good at, or the best strength is creating big scoring chances, and they're going up against 2 respective defenses that are good at preventing them. So I'm looking at the draw here, plus 210. I think you're looking at just an absolute rock fight between Bruno Lage and Patrick Vieira at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Don't know how many people will be tuning into this one with the other matches that are going on. So that's where I'm going, the draw, plus 210. Anthony, you've started to turn around on Crystal Palace lately, though.
Just a little, I don't think I was ever out on Palace. I just don't think I was ever in either. I think we have to go check the tapes. I was lukewarm.
Commit to something, please.
Yeah, I need to. Well, my
commitment.
My
wishy-washy back and forth. Just commit to something.
You can't ever pin a take on me. One take I have had for the last month has been Wolves overs. We did not bet it on Sunday, and they once again overperformed defensively. But I'm fading Wolves here, and I've been looking for a good Wolves fade spot. Arsenal wasn't quite it. West Ham wasn't quite it. But I think this is the spot to do it. The last 700 minutes of action, 11 on 11, Wolves have a minus 0.3 expected goal difference per 90 minutes, and they actually have a plus 0.64 goal difference per 90. That's a goal different, and that's just absurd. They've conceded at least 1 expected goal in their last 8 matches. So we talked about how, Wolves defense is good and overperforming. They've regressed in the good part. They're just not good right now, and they haven't been very good for the last month plus now, conceding more shots generally and not quite having the game control they were having early in the season. Palace have generally been a bit unlucky. Overall, their results in close games have not been great. They've been, every time there's been a toss-up game, it's kind of gone against them, and they've had some great performances that have made up for that, and there's a reason they're in 11th, but overall, you'd expect them to be a little bit better based on their numbers. And the Wolves, they just conceded 1.8 expected goals to West Ham. And we've been talking about how bad this West Ham attack has been. They can't get to 10 shots in any match. Well, they just put up 1.8 on Wolves. I think it's a pretty big red flag. The first meeting between these 2 teams, I know it was at Selhurst Park, where Palace is a lot better, but Palace 13 shots to 5. Palace won the game 2-0. It was a beatdown, really. I know I had Wolves in that one and lost, so definitely a tough one. But Palace has the better numbers across the board all year, and Wolves' XG at home has been pretty mediocre as well. They're 6th worst at the Molineux this season in expected goal difference, so not quite the huge home advantage you'd expect. And therefore, I'm happy to take Palace. I took them plus a quarter goal at minus 110. I like draw no bet as well, which I know BJ is going to talk more about.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love Crystal Palace draw no bet at plus 135. You mentioned it. And I think it goes to kind of a larger point on why we use expected goals and just use them ad nauseum on this podcast and our writing. And this matchup right here is a perfect example of that. Wolves on the season has allowed 21 goals, while Crystal Palace has allowed 38. So if we're just looking at that on paper, we'd say, oh my gosh, Wolves is this incredible defense. It's way better than Palace. But if we look at expected goals, Wolves 36.7 allowed on the season, Crystal Palace only 31.6. So, and Palace is also top 6 in pretty much every single defensive metric, including pressing now, which is big against Wolves, who are a below average team playing through pressure. The Wolves offense, obviously against Arsenal, they scored on the one mistake from Gabriel, and their offense is starting to show some improvements, but only creating over 1 expected goal in 3 of their last 14 matches is not something to write home about. 17th, they're now 17th in expected goals. They're far too reliant, like you mentioned, Michael, on big scoring chances. They currently only average around 10.2 shots per 90, which is second to last in the Premier League, and they're only right around 0.23 xG per shot, which is 8th in the Premier League. So it really isn't that impressive considering you're getting that few shots and your xG per shot is still around the middle of the table. So I agree with Anthony. I have this match projected really, really close to a pick 'em. So I love Crystal Palace draw no bet at a nice price at plus 135.
All right, we'll move on. Aston Villa plus 135 hosting Southampton. plus 210. The draw here is plus 240. The best way to beat Southampton is to be able to create big scoring chances, and Aston Villa does not do that. Southampton is 16th in preventing big scoring chances, but Aston Villa is just 19th at creating them. It's pretty clear that Steven Gerrard's trademark, or the stamp he wanted to put on Aston Villa in his first, it's not a full season, but he wanted to get this defense sorted, and he has a team playing a pretty low event style of soccer. And I just think that Southampton, you are buying high here because they've been in such a good form, but I do think that you're still getting a pretty good number at plus 210 against a team that is struggling to create enough offense, I think, to hang with Southampton, who I do expect to be able to get on the board here once or twice. So give me Southampton here as an underdog. Anthony, Villa, Saints, draw. Where are you looking for this one?
Yeah, I lean toward the under. Southampton, the attack has been on fire lately. They've been rolling. I mean, they might be outside the top 4 teams, probably the hottest attack in the league right now. But Villa's been running pretty hot too. So I expect these two teams to cool off at some point, and they're kind of meeting each other here in a spot. Villa's very direct with their counterattacks. They have they're top in the league in attack speed, and they should be able to create a big chance or two. But Southampton also have now scored 21 goals from 15 expected goals in their last 10 league matches. So not only are they running well above their numbers and kind of regressing positively back to what the mean should have been, but they're also, 1.5 XG per match is pretty good for Saints. So I think both, are probably going to come down to earth a little bit. You don't expect this attack to be this good. And really they've played kind of over their talent level lately. And there was the time to buy the Saints, but we've kind of passed that now. And now I'm looking to maybe sell the attack. Again, Villa, same thing. Villa averaging 1 expected goal per game this year, but they're scoring 1.36 expected goals per match. So that's a pretty red flag that this attack is not nearly as good as the numbers indicate. So I would lean toward the under. The only thing that scares me is that with the Saints, they've just been conceding so many big chances that it only takes 1 or 2 for Villa, and then all of a sudden the game opens up and it gets crazy again. So game state's a bit of a concern, but I certainly lean toward the under 2.5.
Oh yeah, BJ, you're looking at a kind of similar angle here too, right?
Yeah, similarly, I'm going both teams to score no, which is at a pretty good price of plus 130. I believe this price is a little overvalued. Anthony mentioned it. The Aston Villa matches have become low event in terms of expected goals, but we're not seeing that actually what's happening on the pitch. So under Gerrard, 1.09 XG per match for, 1.06 against. So very low event, 2.15 XG per match. Well, actual goals, it's 2.64 per match. So there's going to be some regression pushing that down here. This is just really a bad matchup for Aston Villa, who really struggles to play through pressure. So going up against Southampton's frenetic pressing, who forces the 4th most high turnovers in the Premier League, really is quite a bad matchup. But at that same token, Southampton, I agree with Anthony, they're going to come back down to earth at some point. They can't. I'm not buying that Southampton is suddenly this resurgent team that's going to start pushing up into, maybe threatening into the top 8. I just don't really see it. And their performances away from home just have not been as good than at the St. Mary's Stadium. Plus 5.3 expected goal differential at home versus minus 5.5 away. So both teams have scored. Yes, is that minus 170? I find that to be way, way too high. So I love both teams to score no at plus 130.
We have a really interesting one here between Newcastle and Brighton. Bookmakers are having a tough time separating them right now. The Magpies are plus 170. The Seagulls are plus 175. The draw is plus 220. This is another 10 a.m. kickoff on Saturday. It does set up for a classic sell high spot, I think, on Newcastle. Eddie Howe, I think we all thought he was going to do a lot worse with this team than he did. He's 5-4 win, draw, loss in his 14 games in charge in the Premier League. They have a minus 5 goal differential in that time and a just about a minus 6 expected goal differential. The defense, he did improve them. We're not saying that this is a great defense, but they did get a lot better from the rock bottom that he inherited. However, I do think that this is just a really good opportunity to sell high on Eddie Howe's Newcastle. They're 4-3-0 win, draw, loss since December 27th. And they're taking on a team in Brighton that is just much better than them, I think, in terms of the way they're coached, the way they play, and the fact that Brighton's game really does translate well, whether it's on the road and especially when they're underdogs. So I think that the Seagulls here, I mean, this is just an incredible spot you're getting. I wouldn't be surprised if this number does dip, even if Brighton is on the road. So if you are hearing this on Thursday, you might want to act pretty quickly on Brighton. But yeah, give me the Seagulls. I like them plus 155 or better. I have a feeling that this is going to be a 3 for 3. But BJ, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, definitely lean Brighton. There's just some things that have me concerned with our Seagulls right now. Their performances over the past few weeks have just not been that good. They've lost the expected goals battle in 4 of their last 5 matches. They have a minus 2.6 expected goal differential on the season, which is way below where they were at last season. Now, with that being said, they have some pretty significant advantages over Newcastle here in terms of the pressing. Newcastle horrible at playing through pressure, while Brighton's number 1 in the Premier League in pressure success rate. On the flip side, Brighton is top 3 at playing through pressure, while Newcastle is one of the worst pressing teams in the Premier League. Even with all of the new signings they have, they're still around dead last in passes per defensive action. The last time these two teams met, Newcastle pulled off a smash and grab against Brighton. Brighton completely dominated them in a 1-1 draw, 1.6 XG to 0.2, held 66% possession, 23 shot creating actions to 6. Now, things have obviously changed. Take the Newcastle match against Brentford with a big time grain of salt, considering Brentford got a red card in the 12th minute. So yes, they dominated them, but they should have, because they were up a man for pretty much the entire match. So, and you mentioned it, Michael, the Newcastle defensive performances have gotten better. 3 expected goals allowed in their last 5 matches. So with Brighton being, bottom 6 and non-penalty expected goals 4, definitely gives me some pause on them. But if Brighton draw no bet hits even money, it's at minus 105 right now, but hits even money or anything plus, I'm definitely going to fire on the Seagulls.
Anthony, I think you're going to be with me here with it's been impressive what Newcastle's doing, but at some point they're going to get found out or hit a snag. They're not going to not lose another game. And I think that Brighton are just the type of team that can cool down any side that's running hot.
It's been a while. I feel like since I bet Brighton, I have to go back and look at the last time I bet our Seagulls. It's been a while. So I'm happy to come back and hang on Brighton in this match. I just think the line has gotten out of control here. Minus 105 is fine with me. I'm fine with it up to minus 115, 120. The look ahead was minus 130 on the draw no bet line. And that's about where I have it. And I was like, oh, it might be a good spot for Brighton. But also last week, if you listen to our podcast, I was all over Brentford. Thought the same thing. The recent form of Newcastle is just out of control here. Way too much respect for them. Brentford's great at home. Well, the red card, the bet was dead in 12 minutes. It was a pretty dumb red card too. It didn't really impact the game all that much. But it was a red card nevertheless. And so basically a free win for Newcastle. But now I think we're getting Brighton, and you mentioned it. They haven't been very sharp. They have been quite poor. In fact, they lose to United in the midweek. I thought they were pretty even with United for the first half hour, 45 minutes, and then a goal against the run of play, a red card, and then that game got out of control. And then they have 2 very flat consecutive performances. The first one against Burnley, the attack didn't show, and then Burnley scored 3 chances on 9 shots, I think it was. They had less than 1 expected goal. And then Villa scores 2 goals. So they've conceded 5 goals in the last 2 matches, but they've only conceded 2 expected. The attack has been quite poor, but I expect them to take a step forward here. Newcastle's defense, yes, they've played better, but they also haven't really played any, top attacking side. So they haven't really been tested. Not that Brighton is the team that's going to really pummel them with shots, but overall, I think even since December 30th, which is what I queued it back to, which is right around the start of the January transfer window, right when Newcastle started playing better, Newcastle still has a worse expected goal difference than Brighton since then. So even if you take Newcastle's best part of the season, you can only get them to even with Brighton. And so I'm happy to take Brighton here, even on the road, draw no bet minus 105.
Yeah, and I wonder about Newcastle's their season going forward, because it does seem like they're now pretty much clear of the relegation zone. And a result against Brighton, then they play Southampton, another team that I think when that game comes, if it is an impressive performance from Newcastle here, we'll be looking to sing a similar tune. And then they take on Chelsea, and then it's Everton, and then Tottenham and Wolves. And I just think that when you're looking ahead and thinking about how to play this Newcastle team, I think they're, once again, and I've said this earlier in the year too, I think this is a bet against team going forward, at least until the market cools down on them. All right, another interesting one. We got Burnley. They're plus 750, taking on Chelsea, hosting Chelsea, minus 220. The draw here is plus 320. All sorts of intrigue around Chelsea as Roman Abramovich is going to sell the club due to his just ties to what's going on in Russia. And it's not, I don't think that this stuff normally would affect what will happen on the pitch, but this Chelsea team has just been all over the place in so many different ways since the holidays. We're talking about them playing in the FIFA Club World Cup. They just had to come back against Luton in the FA Cup in the midweek. A couple weeks before that, they had to do the same thing against Plymouth Argyle. They also played a final at Wembley and went to a 11-round shootout against Liverpool. That was on Sunday. Like this team is just being pulled in a million different directions, and I can't think of a worse trip to make than to have to go to Burnley, and where it's probably just going to be. I'll wait for BJ to confirm it. The Lancashire rain and wind will probably just be whipping down at Turf Moor. Someone will turn the sprinklers on, and Sean Dyche will make sure that the wind is howling. And there's no way for me to even think about laying it with Chelsea here. Even though this is Burnley's 5th game in 2 weeks, I do think that they've been pretty impressive. They've shown that they have like a more cohesive plan to generate offense without Weghorst. And yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to keep me off the Burnley money line here. I'll wait to see where it goes, but that's where I'm going. The Clarets. BJ, tell us about the weather and tell us about your bet.
Yeah, 44 degrees, 60% chance of rain, and 10 to 15 mile an hour winds. It's actually a pretty beautiful day in Burnley on Saturday. Yeah, I agree with you. Chelsea, listen, this is not the best of matchups for Burnley. When you take into account all the matches that Chelsea's played, they're just overvalued here on the road. So, for example, I have Chelsea at around 61%. If you look at 538, they have Chelsea at 57%. If you look at Infogol, they have Chelsea at 62%. So Chelsea is currently minus 220, which equates to around 69, a little below 69%. So there is expected value on Burnley, especially at home, where we've talked a lot that they're way better than on the road. They're actually one of the worst road teams in the Premier League, but do have around an even expected goal differential at home. The problem I have with this is I do see a scenario where Chelsea is just going to hold the ball on Burnley's end of the pitch and just fire off shot after shot after shot and eventually break through, because Burnley is dead last in shots allowed per 90. They're dead last in box entries allowed. And Burnley didn't look great on Tuesday, to be honest. Leicester pretty much dominated them for the majority of the match. They did create a couple big scoring chances near the end, but for a majority of that match, there was a lot of sloppiness defensively that Leicester really pounced on and could have had, I think, at least 3 or 4 goals. So if you make those mistakes against Chelsea, they're going to absolutely punish you. So it makes me really nervous with Burnley here. I really just need a better number, but +1 is currently at +105. I need that to get to +115 or +120, or at least get hope maybe. I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe a decent number on +1.5. So I'm definitely leaning Burnley, but I do need a better number on them.
Yeah, I think this match can go in a million different ways because of like the spots and the fact that both teams are playing this compact schedule in Burnley's case, and then the incredibly strange timeline that Chelsea is currently living in. Anthony, I think you're seeing some chaos here, huh?
Yeah, I really want to get there on Burnley too. I'm in the same spot. And there's one thing that I've been, BJ is accusing me of being wishy-washy. There's one thing that I've been going, we buy and we sell here. But I've been pretty steadfast. This Chelsea defense continues to be overrated. And you watched the game against Liverpool. I know it's Liverpool, but how that game ended 0-0 is beyond belief. For those of us who had both teams to score, we don't talk about it. But that's a classic example of Chelsea's defense just bailed out. And look, Mendy's had a good year, but I mean, some of the misses and then the offside call, just brutal. And they continue to ride their luck here. And I think Burnley, they're -110 to score. If that gets to plus money, I'm in. And the same thing, plus 1.25 is minus 130 right now. If that gets down a little bit, I'm there as well. So maybe split a unit on those two or something. But overall, I think this is, I tweeted this out on Wednesday morning. They played in 5 different competitions in 18 days between the Palmeiras win in the Club World Cup on the 12th of February. Then they had the league win against Palace on the 18th. Then they hosted Leo in the Champions League on the 21st. Then they had the cup final on the 25th again, or 27th rather, against Liverpool in Wembley, EFL Cup. And then they had the FA Cup match on Wednesday, and then they're going to have to play the Prem again. So it's just absurd. There has to be fatigue at some point, and they played extra time on Sunday. And then they did rotate the squad a good amount for this Luton match on Wednesday, but even still, they're getting pushed here a lot, and they're really pretty comfortable here, sitting in 3rd place, where they're not really in a danger zone for falling out of the top 4, but they're also not in the title race. So I think it's going to be a weird space for Chelsea in the league, because I think they're going to prioritize, hey, we can try to win the FA Cup, hey, the Champions League. So it'll be interesting to see how Chelsea goes, going down the road here, but definitely a lean toward Burnley. And I'll be damned if I don't end up firing on Burnley team total over a half, I think by Saturday.
Burnley currently in the relegation zone in 18th place, 21 points from 25 games. And we'll talk about 2 other teams in the relegation zone next. That's Norwich City. They're plus 200, hosting Brentford, plus 155. They are favorites on the road. The draw here is plus 215. Let's just set it up real quick. Norwich City, 17 points from 26 games. Above them is Watford, 19 points from 26 games. Then Burnley, 21 from 25. Frank Lampard's Everton, 22 from 24. Leeds United, Jesse Marsh's men, 23 from 26. And then Brentford, 24 from 27 games played. And Newcastle surging 25 points from 25 games. So this Brentford Norwich City one, when you consider that Brentford is 3 points up on Burnley with 2 more games played, this is a huge match for both teams. I would say must win for both clubs coming into it. And I think this is an opportunity here to grab a little bit of value on Brentford, even though they're 1-1-7 win-draw loss since January 1st, and they've just been bad at all parts of the pitch. It's been ugly. This team has played its way into the relegation scrap, right? There's not much, you can't really sugarcoat what's been going on with them. However, I do think that there is a little bit more talent here than is showing through in the results. And Thomas Frank, I think we all believe in him as a manager, and I can't look away from the number on Brentford. It's not going to be a fun one, but plus 155 against Norwich, even on the road. That's where I'm going. Buzz. Back on the Bees, baby. BJ, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like it's 3 straight weeks now. Me and Anthony have been coming on here and saying, hey, we've reached the bottom of the market on Brentford. But so again, I think we've reached the bottom of the market, barely being favored over the worst team in the Premier League. They do play Burnley at home next week. So maybe I'll come back here again and say, hey, we've reached the bottom of the market on Brentford. But it's tough because Brentford has lost essentially 7 of their last 8 matches. I think pretty much you have to throw out the match against Newcastle. Really unlucky red card. Wasn't really trying to basically take out the guy's shin, but it happens. It is what it is. It's a red card. Then they're down a man for the whole match, and they end up losing 2-0 and getting dominated, which you expect to happen being down a man. But Brentford is obviously a club that pays attention to expected goals. They pay attention to advanced analytics. So Thomas Frank is not going anywhere because Brentford minus 17 actual goal differential, only a minus 5.2 expected goal differential. So essentially throwing out that Newcastle match, the 7 matches previous to that, they were outscored by their opponents 16-4, but based on expected goals, it was only 11.2 to 7.5. So it's really not as bad as it seems. Additionally, for the first time in many months, Brentford is fully healthy. David Raya is back in net. Ivan Toney came off the bench against Newcastle. Christian Eriksen made his debut against Newcastle. So they finally have a full healthy squad. And I think maybe we'll start to see the Brentford team that we fell in love with at the beginning of the season. Norwich, just by far and away the worst team in the Premier League. Yes, based on expected goals, that they're not as bad as a minus 44 expected goal differential, but having a 1.06 expected goal differential per 90 minutes is really bad. And over the last 11 matches, Norwich only been able to create an embarrassing 6.6 expected goals by allowing 22.5. This is also a revenge spot for Brentford, who lost to Norwich 2-1 at home earlier in this season, despite winning on expected goals 2.2 to 1.4 and holding 64% possession, having 74 touches in Newcastle's penalty area compared to only 15, or sorry, not Newcastle, Norwich, compared to only 15 for Norwich. So again, it's a buy low spot on Brentford. I feel like it's obviously not as to the level that Brighton was last year, but I think we're starting to reach the level that every single week, if they're healthy, Brentford's going to be a team that you're going to have to bet on because they're just so overdue for some type of positive regression. So I have them projected as an even money favorite on the road. So I'm with you, Michael. Give me the Bees, draw no bet at -125.
Anthony, is this the time that Brentford finally starts to turn things around a little bit? And more importantly, is this the number to back them to do so?
Yeah, I certainly lean that way as well. I probably will end up playing them also. I just feared this team on the road. But the one thing that I think, and I just took my notes from last week's Brentford match and then put them back into this week's because I didn't really read anything into last week. I'd throw everything out the window when it goes to 10 on 11. But the one interesting thing, Norwich is the second worst team at defending set pieces in the league. Only worse is Leicester. We've talked about them a lot. We haven't talked about Norwich. They can't defend set pieces. Brentford, very, very good at taking advantage of not only just corners and free kicks, but also throw-ins, which don't really get counted as set pieces, but are sort of like set pieces the way they do them, at least with the long throw into the box. So I think Brentford has a matchup edge there. You mentioned the revenge angle. All that's true. The only fear has been just how bad they've been away from the Brentford Community Stadium. I will probably not be backing them every week, but I will probably be backing them in this match. Norwich, there's not a ton to like about this team, and they really don't. I don't think they're going to create a lot of chances in this match. Even if you go back to the first meeting, there was a couple of fluky goals and I believe a penalty that went into the win for Norwich, but it wasn't like they were dominating the match. Even Thomas Frank talked about after how they created over 3 or 2 expected goals and they should have won the match.
Move on to the 12:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. That's Liverpool off their Carabao Cup victory against Chelsea. They're -320 hosting West Ham in a rematch from the Hammers' thrilling 3-2 win back in November. The Hammers are 9-1 on the money line at Anfield. The draw here is +475. Since that win, that famous win, West Ham has not been very good. 7-4-6 win, draw, loss with a negative expected goal differential. There's been a bunch of injuries and kind of extenuating circumstances there. However, I think I believe in David Moyes' ability to do well in these kind of spots, right? He seems to be able to find what pisses off a team, a good team, the most, and then exploit that. I don't want to call it a weakness, but that's kind of what he's been able to do his whole career as a manager, at least in the good bits of it. And that's why I don't think you can do the simple thing here, which is to just lay it with Liverpool at home, watch them go up 2-0, get a penalty because that's what they do, and then run away and hide from West Ham. However, I do want to. I'm looking at the West Ham number, but I do think I'm going to need to wait a little bit and see if this thing ticks up, or if there's some lineup clarity or something, because it's not going to be fun to bet against Liverpool in this kind of form and brimming with confidence after hoisting a trophy at Wembley. And of course, their season now is they're chasing Man City in a legitimate title chase here. So, I don't have any self-control, so I'll end up on West Ham. But right now I'm trying my best to kind of talk myself out of it. BJ, what are your thoughts here between the Reds and the Hammers?
Yeah, I'm happy to pass on this one. Definitely would lean towards Liverpool. I would probably need a better number. The interesting thing about Liverpool is they're now on the level with Manchester City, right even with them. Both teams have a +41.8 expected goal differential. Obviously, Liverpool has a game in hand on them. So you could, based on XG differential per 90, Liverpool's actually been better than City this season. Now, a lot of that gets a little bit inflated with a 6-0 win against Leeds United in the midweek, along with a pounding of Norwich City as well. So, take it with a grain of salt wherever it is. But West Ham really just not impressive offensively over the last, few months or so. the match against Wolves was the first time they've created over 1 expected goal since January 16th. And that was against Leeds United. So really tough spot here for West Ham. Obviously Liverpool playing in the midweek, and then have a Champions League match on Wednesday against Inter Milan. But my numbers are pretty close to right on to what the price is. So I'm happy to just pass and let Liverpool win 4-0.
Yeah. And it's that classic kind of conundrum where I think the number is probably inflated here. I mean, it's got to be with the way Liverpool's playing, and West Ham is a good enough team, even though they are struggling. They're a good enough team where no matter what kind of form they're in, 9-1 is always going to be tempting, no matter who the opponent, where the venue of the game, which is my thinking here. It worked with Tottenham against City a couple weeks ago when they were 11-1, and I'm hoping that it works again. But I really wouldn't be surprised to see this number get even longer on West Ham. Anthony, you were thinking this thing could be a little more cagey, I guess, than the numbers which suggest.
Yeah, it's tricky because I've been selling off West Ham for a while now, and I think there are some issues with them, but I also think that Moyes can kind of repeat the game plan from the first meeting in November and just put 10 dudes behind the ball. And I think they're good enough to kind of manage that and to make life difficult for Liverpool. Even though this is at Anfield, it's very different from being away for Liverpool. The Liverpool attack has been running red hot. I know they didn't score at all. I'm not going to talk about that match anymore. They didn't score on Sunday. They should have scored a couple times as well, and they really should have conceded a couple times. But if you go back, I mean, this attack has been rolling, not even just with the 5 against Leeds, or the 6 against Leeds rather, but they have been rolling prior to that as well. And really, you mentioned it, BJ, if they had some better draw luck early in the year, they probably would be on the level with City. And you could look around and probably try to find a 4-1 on Liverpool, 4.5-1. It might not be a terrible bet, but the Reds are going to cool off at some point, I think. And I think West Ham is the kind of team who could cause some trouble. I also don't think West Ham is going to do a ton in attack here. If you go back to the first meeting, there were only 2.4 expected goals, but remember there were the 2 fluke goals very early in the game where they kind of just traded goals, and that really opened it up and kind of changed the dynamic of what was otherwise a pretty cagey game. And then, West Ham scored off of a set piece. And so there wasn't a ton of clear chances in that match, despite it ending 3-2 to West Ham. So I would lean toward the under, but this is probably one I'm just going to sit back and enjoy.
All right, we'll flip the page to Sunday morning, a 9 a.m. kickoff between Watford plus 550 at home hosting Arsenal, who are minus 175. The draw here is 3-1. Roy Hodgson, since taking over for Claudio Ranieri, is 1-2-3 win draw loss with 7.74 expected goals against and 5.78 expected goals for in those matches. That's actually been pretty impressive from Roy. The way he's been able to. I mean, it's because of where this Watford defense was when he took over and how quickly he got them to be pedestrian, which is a huge improvement for the Hornets. And
what was their stat with they hadn't kept the
them in Bordeaux?
38
Bordeaux
matches.
hadn't got a clean sheet. And Bordeaux, by the way, doesn't have a clean sheet on the season.
And now look at the Hornets.
Now look at Watford.
Yeah, it is impressive.
That was about as lucky as it gets last match. But hey,
yeah, but he's the type of manager that is really well suited for those kind of situations, because he's going to have his players in the right spot doing what they need to do to just throw themselves in front of a ball when Manchester United is creating opportunities. And that just makes me horrified for anyone who's laying it with Arsenal here, who I think, by the way, when we started the season, the Arsenal was a roller coaster. No idea what they were going to pull out of the bag.
Talk about wishy-washy.
And I'm admitting to it, right? Like, this was a team that was all over the map, and now have turned into a team where I feel like you kind of just know what they're going to do every week. It feels like that. Like they're much more predictable. It's so funny how a year can change, right? And but I've got nothing here. I'm going to be passing on this one. I did think the under is probably the best way to look at 2.5, because Roy Hodgson is a defensive wizard. But I know, BJ, you disagree.
Yeah, I like over. I think the price on over 2 goals at plus money is pretty good here. Yeah, you mentioned that we know we're going to get from Arsenal now, and that they're going to win every single match because they are red hot and honestly one of the best teams in the Premier League right now. Over their last 10 matches, they have the second best expected goal differential, about around 1.5 per 90 minutes. That's only behind Liverpool, who's obviously been on fire. And the biggest thing is the offense has just come alive. Then they're currently looking unstoppable. The match against Wolves, it was onslaught after onslaught for the entire second half. And over those 10 matches, Arsenal's created close to 20 expected goals. Those are starting to get up there with elite numbers in the Premier League. And so it's not surprising that over those 10 matches that their matches are averaging around 2.8 expected goals. And Arsenal they've done a great job at dominating the bottom half of the table. The Arsenal teams in the past have tripped up against lower sides and really cost a lot of their seasons and top 4 chances when they stumble against lower sides. Well, now they're completely dominating them. In 18 matches against teams below them in the table, Arsenal has a plus 17.4 expected goal differential and are averaging 1.8 expected goals per match. And yes, Roy Hodgson has moved to a 4-4-2. Watford has looked better, but they were obviously very fortunate to not concede a goal against United. They were very fortunate not to concede a goal against Aston Villa, who created around 1.6 against them. So you obviously take this with a grain of salt, but Watford this season against the top 7 teams in the Premier League in 10 matches, 21 expected goals. So not very good. Obviously, a lot of that was under Claudio Ranieri. I'm just not sold that this Watford 4-4-2 is certainly going to cause Arsenal problems, because I just really don't think it will. I think Arsenal have a pretty easy time creating a lot of high quality chances. But the Arsenal defense due for a little bit of negative aggression over those 10 matches, 7 goals allowed from 8.4. So there's a chance Watford could get on the board here. Ismail Assar is questionable. If he plays, it's obviously a big boost to Watford. But I have around 3 goals projected, so I'm going to trust my numbers and take over 2.5 goals at even money, because I think it's a pretty good price.
And now we'll go on to Monday Night Football, a Wondergoal derby between Spurs, minus 170 at home, hosting Everton. Frank Lampard's Toffees are 5-1 on the money line. The draw here is plus 310. Anthony, I'll let you go first, because I'm coming in hot on the Toffees, and I want to hear your argument before I give out mine.
I don't really have a strong opinion on this match. And Spurs overs were fun for a little while, and now I'm kind of, feel like the market's adjusted and it's pretty much right on here where I would have it. There's not a ton of value in the both teams to score, because I think Everton's attack should trend up as we get down towards the business end of the season, because they're getting so many guys back. From a stylistic point of view, I'm still not sure what we're getting from Lampard in this Everton team, especially away from home. Tottenham have been much better at home than away. They played 4 straight away matches. They finally get to come home now, after it felt like they didn't play an away match for a month earlier this season. So I don't have a ton here. The numbers damn near spot on for me. And I will be probably passing a come on you Spurs.
Yeah, I like the price on Everton. They're 5-1 and they're improving. I think that's what the one thing you could say is that if you watch these games under Lampard, it's clear as day that this team is getting better. They're playing better. They're playing harder. And he did something against Man City, which was very encouraging to not just me, but to Everton fans everywhere, which is he put a third man in the middle of the park with Abdoulaye Doucouré coming back. He played with Allan and Donny van de Beek, and those 3 were really good against Man City with those 3. And then you got Anthony Gordon, and either, if it's going to be Demarai Gray or Alex Iwobi, this team is good enough in the midfield here and on the wings to serve, whether it's Richarlison or Dominic Calvert-Lewin if he's healthy, to give them the service that they need, or to provide the opportunity and the space for those guys to score. So like you said, this offense is going to improve. The question is always going to be with Everton is whether the defense is going to be able to hang. And Michael Keane and Mason Holgate, they didn't really cover themselves with glory in with the Manchester City goal, but they did only allow 1. And they did hang with City's attack. They were at home, and I get that Everton has looked a completely different team under Lampard at Goodison than on the road. But I think what you're doing here by buying Everton at 5-1 is you're beating the market before the market catches up to the improvements that we're going to see, not only with the eye test, but as well with the data under Lampard, because it's coming. It's very, very plain to see. Seamus Coleman's looked better, and John Joe Kenny, of all people, has also been impressive as fullbacks for Everton, and neither one of them were good under Benitez. So this team, they are improving. Whether they can pull off the upset, it's 5-1 for a reason. It remains to be seen, but I think that you're getting a really good number on a team that the market just probably won't be able to catch up to because, like we said, the numbers aren't there yet under Lampard, but they will get there eventually. So give me the Toffees 5-1 to round out the Premier League slate for this week. That's a Monday Night Football game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. All right, let's move on to the Bundesliga real quick. BJ, do you have anything for us over in Germany?
Yeah, Stuttgart, Borussia Mönchengladbach over 3 goals at +120. Both Stuttgart and Gladbach are on really, really bad runs right now. Stuttgart is winless in their last 9 matches, while Gladbach only has 2 wins in their last 13. They somehow beat Bayern Munich, but I'm still not mad about it. The biggest problem for both of these clubs is at the defensive end of the pitch. During the 9-match winless streak for Stuttgart, they've allowed a whopping 16.3 expected goals and 16 big scoring chances. On the flip side, Gladbach, 25 expected goals in their last 13 matches. So not good for both these defenses. On the flip side, Gladbach is still, I would say, one of the better offenses in the Bundesliga, maybe still even in the top I'd say 3 or 4. They're second in shots per 90 minutes, which is big against Stuttgart, who is dead last in shots led per 90. And all of those shots are great, but Gladbach is 0.23 XG per shot, which is 5th in the Bundesliga. So it shows you that they're getting a lot of shots and they're getting a lot of high quality shots. So I think they should be able to put at least 1 or 2 in the back of the net on Stuttgart. Stuttgart, their offense has been trending in the right direction ever since they got their best striker, Sasha Klasic, back from injury in January. He's only played in about 5 matches this season and has created 2 expected goals, which is a right on par where he was last season with a 0.47 XG per 90 minutes scoring rate over a full season. So with him back in the lineup, Stuttgart averages around 0.25 more expected goals than without him. So I have around 3.2 goals projected. So I like the price on over 3 goals at +120.
I'll go next. I like Mainz. They're +220 at home against Borussia Dortmund. This is a Sunday 9:30 a.m. kickoff. We love Mainz on the show. This is a strength.
I'm also done with Dortmund.
And this is a strength versus strength matchup, right? You're talking about an offense with Dortmund. We know what they can do, but Mainz, first in the Bundesliga in preventing big scoring chances, 3rd in non-penalty expected goals per 90, 4th in shots against per 90, 3rd in box entries per 90. So this is a defense that can hang with any offense in the Bundesliga, and they're the expected points. They should have like 4 more, but this team, their results are so all over the place, and you don't expect that out of a team that's defense is their strength. So it's interesting, but I do think that this is once again a team to bet on as the season winds down in Germany. So yeah, give me both Vincent's men +220 against Dortmund. Anthony, what do you have for us?
So I had to go back and look at how many times I've actually bet on this German team this season. The answer, after I put the bet in for this week, 4. Bayern Munich -1.5 at home against Bayer Leverkusen. BJ's pumping his fist. We are hip and we are square this week. Square. Bayern led the first meeting 5-0 in 37 minutes, 27 shots to 6 in that match. Bayern beat them 2-0 at home last year. They beat them 2-1 away at Leverkusen, beat them 4-2 both times in 2020 at the end after the pandemic when they came back. It's just not a good matchup for Leverkusen. Bayern dominates the transitions better than anyone. Leverkusen's luck box probably runs out of batteries here as they step up in competition. And that's usually what's happened for them when they played against Bayern. I just think that, we've talked about Leverkusen. I don't have to get into it. 25% over expected overperformance going forward this season. And is it square? Yeah, but I don't bet Bayern often, and I'm betting them here. So hopefully it's a beatdown. And I think eventually things are going to start clicking again for Bayern. They've been a little flat for sure. No doubt about that. But I think things are going to start clicking for them. And hopefully that happens on Saturday and they beat up a pretty overrated Leverkusen.
I agree. I love to be square, and I don't care.
He loves to be square. So that's Mainz and Bayern Munich. Those are one team that we bet on all the time, and one team that we rarely bet on here. All right, let's move on to Serie A. Anthony, anything for you in Italy this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Genoa at home. Draw no bet, -110. I still feel this is a good buy low spot, even though Genoa has drawn 5 consecutive, including their goalless draw with Inter last Friday. They're the much more desperate team here. They're the much more motivated team fighting off relegation. Empoli is pretty safe in the mid-table, not really having any issues. This Genoa attack has been very, very poor. They only have 22 goals all year. They only have 26 expected goals, but Empoli is the spot for them to finally get some goals and get right. I think Empoli has major defensive issues. They conceded the second most expected goals and the second most goals in the league. And I think Genoa is a little bit undervalued here. I make it minus 125. So I like Genoa minus 110, draw no bet at home against Empoli.
BJ, what about you in Italy here?
Well, real quick, on Empoli, to add on to Anthony's point, Empoli has the weirdest home road splits I think I've seen of any team. Around minus 12 expected goal differential at home, but like plus 2 on the road. It's very, very weird. So Genoa playing them at home is obviously a good spot for them. So I agree with you, Anthony. I'm going to go to the special one, Jose Mourinho. His team is on an absolute tear right now. Last 7 matches, plus 10 expected goal differential, which is the best in Serie A over that time span. They're due for so much positive regression defensively. It's not even funny. Last 7 matches, 12 goals allowed off of 5 expected, which is just insane. Roma also the most efficient offense in Serie A on set pieces. They have 14.8 expected goals and have scored 14 of them. They're also number 1 in Serie A in XG per shot at 0.3. They're playing Atalanta, who's coming off a 4-0 drubbing of Sampdoria on Monday, but they're due for some negative aggression. Last 4 matches in all competition, 9 goals scored off of 3.1 expected. So facing a Roma defense that's due for that much positive aggression, that's second in shots allowed per 90 and third in box entries allowed. It's a perfect statistical regression storm for Jose Mourinho. So give me Roma, draw no bet at minus 105.
On to LaLiga now. Anthony, what's your favorite bet in Spain?
So BJ took my pick, which was going to be Atleti, but I'm going with Getafe plus a half at minus 135 on the road. I make this a toss-up. This is 2 even teams, slight lean toward Espanyol being at home, but not good enough to get to the number. It's a super low total. It's a Getafe match. There's never any goals. But this Espanyol defense is so bad. They're bottom of the league in nearly every category, bottom 2 in the league. And they have been riding their luck a little bit, although you can't say that quite as much after they conceded 5 to Villarreal last weekend. If Getafe just gets 1, I think we're in the clear here. I think their defense is more than good enough. They're 5th in expected goals allowed, 9th in box entries, top 6 in shots, big chances allowed. This is a legitimately good defense, good underdog team. They can't get margin ever, but they don't need to win this. We just need a draw. So hopefully we get one of those good Getafe draws, and I'm taking them plus a half here.
All right, BJ. Anthony spoiled it, but let us know why you like Diego Simeone's men.
Well, I always like Diego Simeone's men. I've been very consistent about that on this podcast, unlike some people. They're playing Real Betis, who we've talked about ad nauseum, is just so overvalued. It's not even funny at this point. Offensively this season, 48 goals scored off of 39.4 expected. In fact, in their last 8 matches, they've scored 18 goals off of 11 expected goals. So offensive regression is going to come, and when you're facing the best defense in Spain, it's most likely going to happen. But what's most concerning about Real Betis is, yes, they're in 3rd place in La Liga, but they have been so bad against the top teams in Spain. In 9 matches against Real Madrid, Barcelona, Sevilla, Atlético, Real Sociedad, and Villarreal, Real Betis has a minus 6.6 expected goal differential, and only averaging 0.57 expected goals per match. Against the rest of the table, they're averaging over 2 expected goals, and they have a plus 14 expected goals differential. Atlético is in a huge battle for the top 4 right now. They're 1 point behind Real Betis, and so this match is really, really massive in the La Liga top 4 race, because if the Atlético wins, they're going to leapfrog Betis. So like I already mentioned, Atletico's defense, 0.87 XG per match allowed, best in La Liga, number 1 in pretty much every single defensive category. Offense has been improving as well, 10.2 expected goals in their last 7 matches. The Real Betis defense is pretty, honestly, pretty bad. They give up a ton of high quality chances. It's the reason why they're 13th in non-penalty expected goals allowed, 34 big scoring chances allowed in 26 matches, which is 15th in Spain. And Atletico completely dominated them in the first meeting, just thrashed them 3-0 and won on XG pretty comfortably. So I have Atletico projected around an even money favor on the road. So I love draw no bet at minus 130.
All right, real quick, Ligue 1. I know we both have a bet there before we get to our underdog. So BJ, 30 seconds here on your favorite league in the world.
Yes, Lorient, Leon, Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. Lorient is currently in the relegation battle, but they're a very highly underrated team. Minus 18 actual goal differential versus only a minus 4.3 expected goal differential. Leon, yes, they've been improving, but their defense is still 15th. In Ligue 1, they're going to be without their best defender, most likely Jason Denier. And the home road splits for Leon are quite shocking. Plus 15 expected goal differential at home versus minus 6.7 expected goal differential on the road. And they're relying close to 2 expected goals per match away from home. So with Lorient's improved performances, I think they're due for a lot of positive regression. So I like them plus half a goal at plus 105.
And Anthony?
In Nantes and Montpellier, under 2.5, minus 130, 2 biggest overachievers in France, playing each other on the same weekend. It's just beautiful. 75 goals from 58 expected for these 2 teams combined, both due for some regression, and happy to take an under. Last week's lean of the week pushed. So we're, I don't go a ton into France, but this is one I will definitely be betting and losing.
All right. Yeah, it's the pain portfolio heads to France. All right, let's give out our favorite underdogs for the week. Now, Anthony, we'll start with you. Your favorite pooch.
Yeah, it's a team I've been really high on all year. Crystal Palace, plus 235 on the money line at Wolves. The Wolves luck box has been impressive. They've had a great little run here, but I think they're starting to come back down to earth. They've now lost 2 in a row. I think they're going to continue to lose. They're a little bit overvalued as a favorite. They shouldn't be this much of a favorite against a Palace team that has better underlying numbers over the course of the season. Wolves defense, very lucky, will not be lucky forever. Up the Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
I like Everton Monday Night Football at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They're 5-1. I think that you're just beating the market to Everton's improvement under Frank Lampard. He did adjust the team tactically by sticking a third man in the midfield. That switch paid immediate dividends against Manchester City in a tough luck loss for the Toffees at Goodison Park. Plus, Tottenham's defense has been pretty leaky. 9.37 expected goals allowed since February 1st. That's 1.74 expected goals allowed per match since in their last 5 contests. So look, you're getting to the Everton improvement before the market catches on to it. So I think 5-1, even on the road against a good team like Tottenham, is worth the punt. BJ, close it out.
Cagliari plus 265 at home against Lazio. Cagliari has made a pretty nice run to pull themselves out of the relegation fight. Beat Atalanta on the road 2-1. Drew against Empoli on the road. Drew with Napoli at home, 1 on XG, and then beat Torino on the road and 1 on XG pretty comfortably this past weekend. So pretty impressive performances for them. Now they get another chance to take down another big boy in one of our favorite teams on this podcast, Lazio. I mentioned it last week, but just the crazy over performance has got to stop at some point. 54 goals off of 36.7 expected goals. They're basically entirely relying on big scoring chances. 15th in shots per 90, but 2nd in big scoring chances. Cagliari has been pretty good defensively over the last 7 matches, only 4 big scoring chances allowed. The funny thing about Lazio, and this just kind of extends how lucky they are, they're even lucky in terms of their pressing. They're 15th in passes per defensive action. They're dead last in ball recoveries. They're 10th in high turnovers, but somehow they've scored 9 goals off a high turnover, which is the most in Serie A. So it's really funny how lucky they've been, and it's got to stop at some point. So for a Cagliari team, it's really trending in the right direction. I'm looking forward to watching them blowing another 2-goal lead at plus 265 at home.
All right. On that note, we will move on to our favorite Premier League bets for the weekend. BJ, let's go right back to you. Your favorite EPL bet.
Yeah, Brentford draw no bet at minus 125 on the road against Norwich. Look, I think we've said it 4 weeks in a row now, but I truly think we've reached the bottom of the market on Brentford, barely being favored over the worst Premier League team on the road. They have not been playing great. They're 8 losses in their last 9 matches, but the underlying performances have been a bit better than what they've shown. Obviously, this past weekend, they got a red card in the 12th minute against Newcastle, so basically throw that out the window. Over their previous 7 matches before that, they got outscored by their opponents 16-4, but the expected goals was only 11.2 to 7.5. So the performances are not as bad as they seem, and they're taking on a Norwich team that is just horrific. Yes, they're not as bad as their minus 44 actual goal differential, but a minus 1.06 expected goal differential per 90 minutes signals a really, really bad squad. And even over their last 11 matches, they've only created 6.6 expected goals and allowed 22.5. This is also a revenge spot for Brentford, who lost to Norwich at the Brentford Community Stadium early in the season. Despite winning on expected goals, 2.2 to 1.4, Norwich walked away with a 2-1 win. So this is a good spot for Brentford to finally end this losing streak against the worst team in the Premier League. So give me the Bees, draw no bet at -125.
For me, I like Burnley team total over half a goal, -110 right now. They're taking on Chelsea. I don't mind a little sprinkle on the money line, but in terms of a best bet, it's kind of hard to give that one out. We talk about Chelsea's weird schedule. It's going to catch up to them at some point. They just played an FA Cup match in the midweek. Before that, they played in a League Cup final at Wembley. Before that, they played Lille in a Champions League match. Before that, they played in the FIFA Club World Cup in the Middle East. This team cannot be there can't be that much left in the tank. And and a trip to Turf Moor is probably the worst possible outcome for a team in this kind of crazy schedule, as hopefully there will be rain and wind in Lancashire, and Burnley will just make that a absolute horror show for Chelsea. And in addition, the Burnley offense has not been terrible lately. They're, first of all, as a team, 2-1-1 win, draw, loss over their last 4 matches in the Premier League, and they've created over 1 expected goal 2 of those 4 matches, which is saying a lot for Burnley, and they came close to 1 in a 3-0 win over Brighton. So this is a good opportunity to buy on Burnley. I think they should get on the board against a Chelsea defense that is not as good as the numbers suggest. So I'll take Burnley team total over half a goal, -110. Anthony, what do you have?
Brighton, draw no bet on the road at Newcastle, -105. It's been a while since I've backed our Seagulls, and our Seagulls have not been playing well. And I think that's the reason this line has gotten so cheap. They've lost their last 3 Premier League matches. They lost at Man United. There was a red card in there. They had a very flat consecutive performances against both Burnley and Villa at home. Pretty concerning, but overall it hasn't been quite as bad as I think the narrative is getting now. They conceded 5 goals in those last 2 matches from just 2 expected goals. The attack has been struggling to create chances, but Newcastle's defense has been a little bit overvalued, hasn't played a lot of big name teams or good attacking teams. So I think there could be some sell high here on Newcastle. Newcastle winning 4 of their last 5 matches. The reality is, since December 30th, Newcastle's had their best month of the season, and you could argue Brighton has had their worst, and yet Newcastle still has a worse expected goal difference in the last month and a half, 2 months than the Seagulls here. So you're really, even when you're at the bottom of the market, the Seagulls are the better team. And I think at draw no bet at -105, I'm happy to take them here and bank on their return to form.
All right, that wraps up another episode of Wondergoal. It should be a fun week around the Premier League and the rest of Europe, and we will see you guys again on Monday morning to talk some Champions League. So best of luck on all your bets this weekend.